Welcome to this episode of The Heart of the Matter. Our guest today is Mrs. Johanna Adeyelika. I'll get the name right before the end of the episode. And today we're talking about etiquette. She's author of a number of books, and she makes presentations, and she trains and teaches on this subject of etiquette, which really simply means manners. And you know, if you're Nigerian, you know that we need to work on etiquette. You're welcome to The Heart of the Matter.
Thank you very much, Pastor Ali.
Etiquette. What brought the idea of training people and talking about etiquette?
Actually, I trained in hotel management some many years ago. And my experience in the hotel industry made me realize how much people who pay a lot of money to reside in expensive five-star hotels really wanted the standard. And I was first of all in England before actually coming to Nigeria. And I could see that the standard that we were offering in Nigeria was rather different to the standard we were offering in the Western world. So I just looked at the whole situation, and with the encouragement of my pastor, he said, there is something you can do, and you can do very well. So I began to read into it, and here I am.
Wonderful. So what was the reaction of people when you first of all said, look, I'm going to start teaching people about etiquette?
It was welcomed well. I started in the church initially. And though it was hard work sometimes, because trying to change people's culture and people's understanding of good manners was not really welcomed that well.
I would like to know a little bit more detail of the kind of areas in the church. That's probably because I live in the church.
We looked at the manners even amongst each other. We looked at how do we respect each other? How do we respect each other's cultures? Because you will find that certain areas in our country, the eastern part, the southern part, people always believe that their own culture is the right one and everybody else's is indifferent. So we started to try and unite people and teach them that etiquette, even though it's not altogether global, it's something that we need to do to respect each other. So the respect aspect was major. And then we looked at the discrepancies of people's behaviors, how you could offend people very easily. We also went into looking at personality types. How do you understand that? If it is, if it's a culture to only use your right hand to hand something over to someone, and then you look at the Western culture where a left-handed person will use their left hand and nobody batters an eyelid over it. How do you make them understand that this is your culture, this is, you know, a taboo for you to give someone something in a left hand in Nigeria, but you go to a developed country and nobody questions you. So we were trying to educate them, because they say knowledge is power. And so many people are going in and out of Nigeria. They need to understand, how do I behave outside the country?
Now, talk about etiquette and the West. Is there a Western etiquette that is distinct from our Nigerian etiquette? And because we have several different cultures in Nigeria, can we zero in on anything and say this is Nigerian culture or etiquette?
Well, I think when you look at the different states in Nigeria, there are no etiquette standards that will apply to everyone. You know, when, like I just said, if you look at the north, in the north, for example, to shake hands with a woman would be a no-no. Whereas in the southern part of Nigeria, to shake hands is a normal, everyday procedure. But then when you break it down to the Yoruba people, you would not say hi to your grandmother or hi to your father. You would have to prostrate and greet them. So I don't think there's a uniform etiquette that we can develop in Nigeria.
But good manners are universal.
Good manners are universal.
So
yes.
What are the kind of things that you encounter? We go to banks, we go to various places where we interact with people.
Yes.
Carving out a niche for yourself in being able to help people
yes.
develop manners and have an etiquette. What has your experience been?
To try and get people to understand etiquette. Do you know, I always use the example of Idiagmo many years ago, where we had the war against indiscipline. Now, many years ago, people used to, for example, urinate in the street anywhere. And then he said, no, as from today, when you attempt such a thing, we are going to arrest you. And what happened? The society began to abide by that rule. I think what causes a lack of etiquette in Nigeria is simply because people just do what they want and nobody's there to caution. But in my experience, in training people, the more you enlighten people, the more you give them knowledge and explain why we are supposed to actually react in a certain way in order to respect the next person, you now discover people say, oh yes, and I didn't realize that. And you'll be surprised, it's the simplest things. Like I could tell you about handshaking, which is a popular way of greeting in the Western world. But you'll be surprised how many people don't know how to handshake, or the actual understanding of handshaking correctly.
Can you enlighten us?
Yes, of course I can. I mean, on approaching an individual, the first thing you should do is have eye contact. Post eye contact, there should be at least a subtle smile. After the subtle smile, then there will be a word of greeting. Good morning, Pastor Wale. And we would be greeting. Then there is a method in which we should handshake. The webs should join together.
Okay.
The two webs should join together. The handshake should not be a bone-crushing handshake, but a subtle handshake, not too soft, because in the Western world they would say you are lacking confidence or you are not an honest individual. So you should handshake in a way that you could use to open a door, which is firm but not bone-crushing. You should not hold a person's hand for more than 3 seconds. And you should not be shaking, if you don't mind me using your hand. You should not be shaking so you're causing pain to the shoulder of the next person. And you hold that for 3 seconds. After the 3 seconds, you then open your hands and subtly take a step back. Because you will see in our society, people will hold your hand and they'll be taking you somewhere that you don't know where you're going. Some of them will hold your hand tight. Some of them will be doing the shoulder jam to greet you. Some will be doing all sorts of, What
about a two-handed handshake?
The two-handed handshake can have two meanings. I can shake you, sir, and I could put my hand on top, and that could be a sign of sincerity. I could also shake you, and it could be a sign of authority. So trying to differentiate which one it is
I remember recently I watched President Obama at Buckingham Palace, and he did something that was supposed to be taboo. He tapped the Queen on her back.
Yes, that's not good etiquette at all. I believe the Australian president did the same thing to the Queen some years ago as well. It is not good etiquette at all.
So who decides?
Etiquette has been in existence for a long time. And unfortunately, society changes etiquette to please themselves. Like many years ago, you would not be on a bus and have an older person come onto the bus and a young person sits down. They would have to, if practiced from home, they would stand up and allow the more mature person or the female to sit down. But these days, because money has taken over etiquette, I have seen just a few weeks ago when I was traveling, there was a lady who was slightly disabled on the bus as we were approaching the aeroplane, And the mother kept the 2 children taking 2 seats while an adult in pain stood up. Now, that would not happen in my time. It would not happen.
Now, when we come to the corporate world, I've been into offices where receptionists, and I think that's the first person you meet, and it can create an impression of what the company is like, is busy doing her fingernails.
Yes.
And that doesn't sound like etiquette to me.
At all. It takes 15 seconds to make a first impression, and it takes a lifetime to change it. So therefore, we have this issue in Nigeria, not with all, but with many, whereby the receptionist feels your presence, but is just busy writing and doesn't even excuse herself that, please, I'll be with you in just one moment, carries on, and then says, yes, what can I do for you? We struggle with situations like this, but do you know, Pastor, so many people do not know they've done anything wrong. And this issue stems from the lack of training. Unless if we employ people into our organizations, train them well, give them an induction into the expectations of that organization, then we will continue to have these issues.
Now, you've done a few books about etiquette, so we're going to come and talk about that in a minute. Yes. And we'll take a short break now. Viewers, stay tuned to The Heart of the Matter. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to The Heart of the Matter, where we're talking with Mrs. Johanna Adeyelika. Sorry, my parents will answer for that because they didn't teach me Yoruba first.
Likewise, me, Pastor.
You've done some interesting books.
Thank you.
There's one here, Social Etiquette, Exploring the Routes to Becoming a Better Person. Can you tell us a little bit about this book?
Of course I can. Social Etiquette book was the first book in which I wrote, and I actually wrote it for fun because, as you know, Pastor, when you've been brought up in the Western world and you've gone to a good school and so on, you grow up with good manners. It isn't actually something you need to be taught as such. So there were a lot of things that I was able to discover in Nigeria, that the simple things were not done naturally. You know, I would speak to people and they would be poking their nose, they would be scratching their head, they would even be taking food from their mouth. Simple things which in the Western world we would look at and frown at. So I compiled this book called Social Etiquette, Exploring the Routes to Becoming a Better Person, because I think a lot of people they just don't know what etiquette is. So I put it in a very slim, easy to read book. And this book is for adults. I also went ahead and I have a CD of the book for those who are rather lazy or don't have time to read. Yes.
Okay, then the second one, Etiquette Matters.
Yes.
In Nigeria from childhood to youth, growing up with good manners.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
I remember that my father always made me open the car door.
Yes.
For my wife.
Yes.
I don't see anybody doing that these days. I don't, and I must be honest now with the viewers. I have gotten into the habit of just getting into the car myself and everybody get into the car. But that was etiquette.
It certainly was. And I think peer pressure sometimes in Nigeria prevents people from doing the right thing. And I always say to people, several wrongs don't make wrong right. You know, people think if the masses do something that is wrong, then we can class it as being okay right. to do, but it isn't. And I wish you would really continue with that, Pastor.
I will try. Tell us about the book.
The book is a 4-topic book. It talks on social etiquette, dressing etiquette, dining etiquette, and business etiquette. And it's for youth, for young people, so that they can have more meaning into growing up, what can they do? You know, how does manners affect their future? And, you know, even on the aspect of dressing, you know, many of our youth dress in a manner that is not going to get them the best jobs, and it's not going to link them with the people of high caliber either.
They call this sagging.
Sagging.
When they're wearing their trousers.
Yes, yes. And we all know where sagging came from slavery in America. And it does pain me when we think of all the black leaders, Martin Luther King, you know, all those people who actually fought for freedom. And then our society now, our youth now says, I'm going back in time. You know, it's rather sad.
But talking about dressing is very interesting, because I noticed that the standards have changed. And, you know, sometimes even in church on a Sunday, you see some people are almost nude.
Yes.
So they need to get hold of a copy of this book and read it. And then Manners Matter. This is your latest offering.
That was the last book I did.
And this is directed at children.
Children, yes.
So it's children friendly, illustrated
it's
and all
very
that.
children friendly. It's actually a coloring in book as well. It's for parents to read to their children who are too young to read themselves, and then from readable age to possibly age 10. This is the book it's a favored book. This is a book that a lot of children, even by the colors at the front, want to read. And everything in that book is more or less identical to what is illustrated in my first two books, but it's just been adapted for young children. Yes.
Now, let's get a little more serious now.
Yes.
I believe that the learning ground for most people, what is going to carry you for the rest of your life, starts at home, in the family.
Without a doubt.
And if the parents don't have it to give, how are they going to give? How are they going to pass good manners across to their children?
I think for many, Pastor, we have sort of given up with some parents, because it's not that we really don't want to start from that angle, but you can't put into something what is not and has never been there. It's not that easy, as we have discovered during our training. So therefore, what we are actually looking at is looking at the children going home to educate their parents. Yes. And this is why the education system is so important to us. If you don't have teachers with good manners, if you don't have teachers who don't know how to speak well to children, because children are human beings too, and they deserve respect, but unfortunately in Nigeria we seem to look at children as they should be seen and not heard. But in our generation, that's not so. So we should be looking at ensuring that we educate our teachers well.
Are you penetrating the education system? Are you able to take training to the teachers, training to the schools?
I have trained in some schools, but trying to penetrate the state schools is another ball game entirely. I've made many attempts to try and get into state schools, but I'm not having the best luck. People will see the books, they will say, definitely this is what we need, but trying to get there, I'm appealing to, you know, the government really, to put more pressure on them, that the importance of building up good people in our society, people who will hold a legacy in our generation, stems from these young children. And if we don't address it now, because 70% of our society is of youth, if we don't address them now, if we don't teach them, if we don't give them knowledge, there's a time bomb ready to explode.
So what are the typical bad manners that the youth have, or the young people have, that needs to be addressed? What are the typical things you will?
Well, the typical things are not respecting adults. That is a major one. Not respecting themselves. If we want to break it down into chunks, let's look at the fact that most young people want to get rich quickly, and they don't want to work for it either. But if I may be critical to some extent, even our churches, we are teaching them that God does not want anybody to be poor. We look at backstabbing. Why do people backstab? You know, why are people lazy? So many things. Why do people urinate outside? Why can't they wait? Why do people throw litter outside their windows onto the street? Why do people pour empty water from the third floor down to, you know, all those things, not respecting your neighbor, you know, only looking at you, and you don't care about anybody else.
I guess for us as Christians, Christianity is about putting others before yourself.
Yes, one would expect.
And so one would expect that, you know, I remember, because the way I was brought up, you open doors for ladies.
Yes.
And there's this time I was abroad, and then I opened the door, I held it open.
Yes.
And the lady was coming through, certainly wasn't a lady. She said, no, I can open the door myself. And I thought, the world is changing.
Yes.
Is our manners changing as well? Things that were not acceptable in any way whatsoever many, many years ago are accepted today.
But I really believe that your exposure is what encouraged you to do those things. Do you know that if a man is walking towards a door and he comes through that door before me and just walks past, I would frown at that. But a typical cultured woman would actually wait for the man to pass first. So it's about our exposure. It's our exposure that makes it easier to accept that, yes, a man opens the door for me, I pass. And very importantly as well, the woman should appreciate the man who opened the door by saying, thank you very much, sir. You know, even when you're in your vehicle and somebody gives you way, I usually, you know, wave my thank you, or I horn. And then the person will look at me and say, do I know you? Because it's not a familiar reaction.
We certainly don't have courtesy on our streets. And I noticed that in most other countries, you tend to have courtesy.
Yes.
But over here, it's everybody's
battling.
How do we solve that sort of problem?
Pastor, I breathe in and I breathe out, because I have taught traffic etiquette. You see, the thing is that there are so many people on the street driving vehicles that shouldn't be driving, that don't have a license, that they've never taken a driving test in their life. I mean, when I first came back to Nigeria, when somebody flashed their headlights at me twice, I thought they were giving me the way to move on. And when I've driven forward, they've cautioned me that don't move from there. Whereas in the Western world, if someone flashes the headlights, they're telling you they are stopping to give you the right of way.
Well, the truth is that there's no flashing headlights in the highway code. So we just interpret what we think it means. I would really like to go into a little deeper on marriage etiquette, but we'll take that in a minute. We need to go on a break. Viewers, stay tuned. We'll be back with the heart of the matter. Welcome back to the heart of the matter, where we're talking about etiquette with Johanna Adeyelika. I know I haven't got it, and I'm going to go and practice. Just before we went on a break, we're talking about etiquette in marriage.
Yes.
And the experience that most people have of marriage today is that even Christian marriages are not surviving. The rate is almost 1 in every 3 Christian marriages will break down in a matter of time. What is it that you can offer to Christian couples, or to any couples for that matter, that can help them deal with their marriages?
One of the issues in the past, Christians have always looked at their marriage must be perfect, that the woman alone must endure the marriage because marriage is so precious in Nigeria, for example. And despite the fact that many young people have seen failure in their parents' marriages, the society is still telling them that without a husband, without a wife, you are not fulfilled. Now, what is it we are being taught about marriage from a young age? We are preparing most girls for marriage, but we're not preparing our young men, our boys, for marriage. When now men are becoming later, they're getting later and later in age before they're getting married, simply because they're afraid of it. They've seen so much, despite the fact that we talk about what the Bible expects from us in marriage, what the ministries expect from us in marriage. But unfortunately, Pastor, even pastors are having difficulty in marriage. Where we used to look up to individuals that they were laid a good example to society about marriage, now there's failure even in that area.
One of the reasons be that people are going into marriage with the option of divorce, whereas once upon a time you got married, it was for life. Could that be one of the reasons?
It could be, but there's one important thing that we don't look at, and that is that it takes two people to say I do, and it takes one to say I don't. Mm-hmm. And when that one person says I don't, no matter the sort of intervention of anybody, whether it be from the religious aspect or from the world, nothing seems to change the minds. There are so many external forces around us nowadays that it's so difficult. I remember speaking to a man who said, if you know the pressure I go through every day with the opposite sex, you would know that any man who stays faithful to his wife has done a really good job. And likewise, because women now, they have their independence, they're working, they have their own money, they're buying their own cars, they're building houses, they're doing so on. So the aspect of respect to your husband, who is supposed to be the head of the house, is now slowly disappearing.
So what can we do for these couples, especially the young couples who are just getting into marriage? What can you say to them? What are the things they should do in their home? For instance, how far do they let outsiders into their marriage?
I think it gets to the point, many of them don't say anything. They don't say anything. And they should be encouraged to speak, but speak to the right people. You know, sir, that sometimes marriage is give and give and give and give until you are tired. But still, you continue to give.
So I want our viewers to understand that it's not just etiquette or manners, but even counseling with their marriages. You're happy to help them.
Of course.
Unfortunately, time has run out, and we're going to have to draw the curtain on this episode, much as I'd like us to continue talking. But thank you very much, Johanna, for coming and being such a blessing to our viewers. And we do hope that you will get in touch with her. All the details to contact her will be put on the screen. So viewers, we've had fun. We've had lots of pleasure bringing this episode of The Heart of the Matter to you. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'll be back again, same time next week with another episode of The Heart of the Matter. Until then, stay blessed.